So where are we going today, Kev?
So Dan, we've just packed up at Foyers Pier and we're going to leave and do a route which I like to call Fantastic Foyers, which is going to take us in around the Foyers area, up past Cameron's, down Glenlea, past the pipeline,
Yeah.
and then up the back to some nice viewpoints. It's going to be spectacular, and the weather today is as you can see, is very, very, very nice. You know, so I'm very, very pleased. You know.
It is a wonderful day for getting out on the bikes. Today I'm going for a respite ride with Kev Stacey from Inverness-based 42 Cycling. Kev's a former Black Watch soldier. He comes from a proud Black Watch family and served for 25 years in the military. But life changed in 2004 after he was injured in Basra, southern Iraq. Kev left the army in 2019, but like so many other veterans, he faced an uphill struggle over the following years, coming to terms with his experiences of war, leaving the protective cloak of the armed forces, dealing with the loss of close friends, and working out who he was now he was back on Civvy Street. That sounds like a pretty strong cocktail, Kev.
Well, it is a strong cocktail, and actually we meant to turn right here, but we'll carry on straight down, which is fine. But then that's life, isn't it? You know,
It is.
Life's full of up and downs, you know, so.
Yeah.
Which we'll find out, I suppose, in due course.
We will. I'm Dan Holland. Speaking of Suicide is made for and in collaboration with Mikey's Line. And as with all these podcasts, Speaking of Suicide is meant to be open and honest. That's the whole point of it. But that doesn't always make for an easy listen. So remember, you can press pause anytime you want. And don't forget, there is support from Mikey's Line, and I'll give their details out after we've heard from Kev. Kev, we'll unpick how you came to develop Respite Rides in just a sec, but for now, tell me, what is a Respite Ride and what do you do on them?
So Respite Rides really is something that I've identified with certainly myself. I get a lot of respite from cycling my bike.
Yeah.
And what I found certainly over the years was it helps massively with my sort of mindset. I'm out in the open, I'm out in the fresh air, get to see some stunning views. So it's not just good for sort of my physical health, it's actually really good for my sort of mental health as well.
Yeah.
You know, so getting that sort of peace and quiet, and it gives you that opportunity to sort of unpick the trials and tribulations, the thoughts and the issues that you've got going on in your life at the time. And what I quite like about that is if you imagine a pocket full of problems, and you know, you pop it in your pocket and you're going for a cycle. It could be a road bike, gravel bike, mountain bike, whatever sort of mode of transport that really floats your sort of boat there. But you know, you actually go for a pedal, and you go out for a couple of hours, and you're sitting there and you're thinking about these sort of different issues and stuff you've got going on in your life. And then when you get home, you know, you've sort of sorted them all out.
Yeah.
You know, your brain's processed them all. And that pocket full of problems, if you equate it to like having a pocket full of sand, you've got like a hole in the bottom of your pocket. Well, by the time you get back, it's all disappeared.
It's all disappeared.
You know, so you've worked through all these issues, you've worked through all these sort of these problems, all these concerns and worries that you've got, and the brain is naturally designed to process your thoughts, and it's wanting to put things in the relevant box. And because in today's sort of modern day life, we don't get the opportunity really.
Yeah.
We don't get the opportunity to sort of have a bit of time to ourselves to process what we've seen and done during that day, for example, let alone some traumatic events that people have been through. Traumatic events takes a lot longer for you to process, so obviously a bit more sort of riding. However, you know, for sort of maybe some of the listeners who are listening who are you know, having a bit of a bad day, you know, well, that's just that day.
Yeah.
You know,
That's just
tomorrow's
a new day.
Yeah, exactly. And you could you know, if you had to go for a ride, and you know, you could then have that bit of alone time to process what's happened during that day to then set yourself up for the next day. So it's very much on that sort of path. And that's why I've got the respite. Well, I called it respite rides because you're gaining respite from riding your bike. So it's not just a case of going out for a jolly. You're actually improving your own sort of psychological and sort of mental well-being, you know, as well as your physical health. You know.
And we are so lucky today down in Foyers. I'm not sure we could get a better day for being out on the bikes.
Oh,
I've never ridden down here at all, and we're on some of your e-bikes. I've never ridden an e-bike before even, so this is going to be great fun. Let's just go off and have a ride.
Aye, fantastic, Dan. But if we just add, the best bit about getting out on your bike is once you've done all this processing and stuff and you get back in, then you get the endorphin boost, which makes your brain feel even better, you know. So
it's like the double hit, isn't it?
It's a massive double hit.
Self-perpetuating.
It's a massive double hit. You know?
Yeah.
So it's very, very, very good for your health. And it's no coincidence that people are now picking up on this, and you know, doctors, you know, various industry bodies are picking up on the fact that cycling, bikes, and being out in the outdoors is great for your mental health.
We've pedalled up back a foyers, Kev. We've stopped in, we're just sitting in the top of sort of the side of a wee glen. There's flowers growing, there's long grass, bits of timber on the ground, but where are we?
So this is quite a well-known little stretch of area, Glen Lear, which for road cyclists, they come along 200 Farragut, turn left, and then turn right at a little bridge and follow this little road up. So certainly people who are listening who are from Inverness will know this area reasonably well if they're a cyclist, because this is a little back road that avoids some pretty steep climbs on a road bike to get you to for instance, like Cameron's Tea Room, which is a popular cyclist stop. And this little road takes you all the way up past the pipeline, quite a well-known feature. But it's a stunning location. It's not very well explored, I feel. Certainly not on a bike anyway. And we're sat now in amongst all this lovely sort of greenery and the flowers flowering, and it's fantastic.
And it is bluebird day, the sun's beating down, the sky's blue, butterfly has just flapped in between us. I mean, it couldn't be nicer to be out and about in the Highlands. Now, I said at the beginning you came from a proud Black Watch family. Were you always destined to join the army, do you think?
Probably yes. Well, I don't know if I was fortunate or not, but when I was very young, I kind of knew what I wanted to do in life. You know, so, well, when I say knew what to do in life, I knew I wanted to go to Queen Victoria Military Boarding School. So, and then when I got there, I knew I wanted to join the army, and that's probably in part because you know, my family history. I had my grandfather, uncle, and father who all served in the Black Watch, and they all overlapped with each other. You know, one with each other, and I certainly overlapped my service with my father, who was, when I joined, the then families officer as an officer, and I was a young private soldier having to salute your dad. You know? what a cool thing that would be, isn't it? You know?
But what about when you got home as well? Did you have to carry that on at home?
Well, there's one sort of, I suppose, funny story. I was down in Pirbright, in the barracks down there. Alexandria Barracks is at the back of the sort of main camp in Pirbright sort of garrison, so to speak. And I was walking along and I thought, oh no, here he comes. And I was with some other soldiers at the time, and then there was only three of us, so you know, we had to throw up a salute, you know, so as we did. And he called me back and he says, "Dishes tonight." I was like, all right, sir. Which is quite funny, but that was
yeah.
You know, that was one of two times that we sort of crossed paths properly. So
yeah.
quite fun, like, you know, to sort of cross paths. You know,
you know, I can tell today from riding with you. We've been riding for a couple of hours before we stop here, and you are just passionate about the bike. Has cycling always been a passion for you as well?
Yes, I mean, I loved my bike as a child. Absolutely loved getting out, and what it used to do for me, certainly, and I dare I say for everybody, and you still hark back to that sort of moments when you are a child, is that sort of exploration. It gives you a sense of freedom. You can jump on something and it can transport you to some new area pretty easily. Whereas if you're walking or running, it's a bit more physical and exertion, you know, required to get there, which makes you more tired, which means you can't really maximise that area, explore that area properly. And it's that sort of exploration which was key. And dare I say, when I joined the military, you know, the army, and it wasn't really until I sort of got down to Wales as you know, sort of colour sergeant, and then later on as a divisional sergeant major, that I started to get back into biking properly, because you could leave from the front door, you see. And you know, I used to commute back and forward into the then barracks, you know, on a bike, and then at the weekends I'd be able to jump on my bike and go and ride round the Windy Gap, for example, and things like that. So all from my front door, which is fantastic. And when I come back to Inverness, properly in 2014 it was, I got really big into sort of the road riding. I got bitten by that quite badly, and then that sort of led us up to leaving in 2019. So when I then thought, well, I'm going to chase my passion of cycling and set up 4-2 cycling to take people to amazing places. Very much in a sort of a holistic type front, but I want to transport you, whichever bike it is, could be mountain bike, gravel bike or road bike, to amazing places so that you can see some amazing views and really open up your mind and make you feel better about yourself, and then have that sort of physical and sort of mental, psychological sort of release. Have a nice respite ride.
We can really feel today, I think, the benefit of being out on the bike and being out in the wilderness and being outside. But we'll talk about Respite Rides throughout our conversation. But to understand a bit more about why we have ended up having a respite ride today, we need to go kind of right back to the beginning a wee bit here. Can you, in your own way, and as much or as little as you want, take me back to August 2004 and where you were, what you were doing and what happened?
Certainly. So in 2003 we went to a conflict, the war in Iraq. I moved early on coming back there. I'd barely back 2.5 months back in Battersby Barracks at the time in Warminster when we got the call to go back out to Iraq. And then 2 months later into that particular deployment, I was blown up and very seriously injured. So, and that I suppose for me at the time was quite a turning point in sort of life, sort of perception and how you sort of view where you see yourself going in life. Unbeknown to us at the time, it was all part of the August uprisings when they wanted us out basically. And it was interesting because it was light and day, where you had the year before, the Iraqis were, the Basra people were very happy to see you and welcomed you into the city and giving you tea and coffees and all sorts of things, little sweets. They love their sweets, like the sweet tooths, the sort of pastries, and they're very, very happy to see you. To then, like barely a year later, 11 months later, they wanted you out. We're in a Warrior armoured fighting vehicle at the time, and we've been given the route to go and, basically crashed into Basra. So I followed the route. And as we went round, quite a big market, turned right, and then there was a vehicle. I remember a vehicle being in front, and it was driving quite slow. And there was a young gentleman, great guy, called Mark Ferns, who sadly passed away in that incident. Because he didn't the injuries he sustained, he didn't survive from, which is very sad. And he was a great lad. He slept in the bed next to me in a tent actually, but well, anyway, this vehicle, was going slow, and he got in the blow and says, "What do you want me to do? Do you want me to slow down or speed up?" And I says, "Well, let's just keep our distance." Thinking, but when I look back on that now in hindsight, that vehicle was slowing us down for a reason. It was there to fix us, really, So, and it wanted to fix us so that whoever's going to set off this command wire IED, improvised explosive device, was going to, have that opportunity to hit the perfect, time.
By fix you mean
slow us down.
Slow you down, so you are
an easier
target.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what they did. So, but that's something that does sort of play at my mind, and I do feel certainly a bit responsible, dare I say, because I was a sergeant and I'd been there before, the year before. I just had a young platoon commander literally just joined us. Literally, it was 3 days before we went into Basra. So he just literally passed out of training, done all his phase 3 training with the Warrior vehicle, and then got flown out. So they had a platoon commander change, and he was very, very fortunate.
So as sergeant, you would have been leading a group of how many men? So
I was responsible for having 36 soldiers under my charge. The way it's sort of operated, you have 3 sections. You have a platoon commander and you have like a platoon headquarters. You see, so and obviously the platoon sergeant's there. Probably the best way to describe it's kind of like a father figure type thing, And they use this like an element of sort of carrot and stick as well, like sometimes a bit of stick to keep people motivated, but not very often because you can't do that in this like if you do it too much it becomes ineffective. But a bit of carrot and stick, and and then certainly the carrots, look after your soldiers as much as possible. And what's good about the military, but it can also be a negative, is they make you take ownership of your men, of your people, and that's a really admirable quality. The negative to that is you feel responsible. So and that's an after effect that can have a detrimental impact on your life later on. that you are responsible for your men, and if somebody dies on your watch, then you are responsible. That's what it feels like with myself. Like so.
You mentioned Mark Ferns there, and he sadly died of his injuries. Were you injured in that accident?
Yes. So I was very, very serious injured. So when the blast went off, obviously, the last conversation with Mark was, was that conversation about what do you want to do? Do you want to slow down and speed up? And I said, slow down, keep the distance. There's a gentleman called Chris Badley at the time, who was a young platoon commander, and he, excuse me, he asked where we were at the time, and I said, we're at Orange 1. And I just double-checked my map, glanced down. At that point, I double-checked, glanced down at my map. The blast went off, and a whole load of shipyard confetti and stuff flew out. A ball bearing hit my helmet. Now, if I was looking down now, if I was looking up, that'd be in the centre of my face, so I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now.
Yeah.
But it hit my helmet. It didn't penetrate the helmet, thankfully, but your skull's designed to collapse under pressure, which is what happened. I had my arms sitting in between the two sort of hatches, and what had happened is the ball bearing, I thought, had hit my helmet and come off and hit my arm. So I lifted my arm up, it looked like a jellified mess, and it wasn't. It was just a blast that done that. I didn't know it had been blown up. I thought it had been shot. So I was shouting I'd been shot, and I was shouting to Mark to drive, at the contact, thinking it was a contact. It wasn't a contact, it was a bomb blast. But Mark, unfortunately, didn't survive that. So
it's really hard for me, and I suspect other people listening who haven't served in any of our armed forces, to imagine or start to understand what you went through or what that was like for you. And I think I can pick up from the emotion it's stirring in you now, even speaking about it, what it does to you and how it probably affected you. This isn't meant to be a crass question, and if it's a step too far, just say, how did that long-term effect on you from there, how did that play out? I mean, you've talked about guilt already.
Aye. So the way that the military system works makes you feel responsible for your men, and I certainly still do feel very responsible for Mark's death. But for me, directly after that, I blacked out for a couple of seconds, thought I'd been shot. I then was, I looked at my arm and thought, well, that's going to be painful. I had some fun and games with morphine with the soldiers in, because it was a very poorly designed morphine auto-injector, but it had a red and a yellow end. So if I said to you, red, what do you think? So if you've got a needle that comes out of a vial, and you see a red end and a yellow end, which side do you think the needle comes out?
Red end.
Incorrect. It'd be the yellow end. The red's danger to arm it. So the fog of war closes in.
The fog of everything else.
And people, they don't panic. They just don't think clearly. You don't have a clear thought process. So I had two soldiers who went to inject me, and subsequently injected themselves. So there's another two casualties. And that's just what happened. It's like, thankfully we weren't under sustained contact. It was just a one-off explosion. So that was I suppose one positive, because then there wasn't anybody else getting injured in that sort of aspect. So that was a good thing. Two vehicles. But what felt like 2 seconds was actually probably 30 minutes, where the MERT team came in, dropped. They basically, I was walking wounded. I walked onto the helicopter.
The MERT team, that's the medical emergency recovery response team, to take you out, to get you...
Aye. And then they took us back to the Scheibel Logistics Base, which is where they had the main sort of base now, so didn't have any had some little pockets in Paris, but had the main sort of base at the airport. And so from there, I walked onto the helicopter fine, and I remember the then loadmaster saying, "Can you strap yourself in?" I said, "Well, what? Looks like a arm, mate, So, but he strapped us in, and they did a fantastic job, because they worked on Mark, and and it's something that's going to haunt me for a long time. But to see his body getting worked on so vigorously, it's quite dramatic in itself, I think. you know, and certainly some of the emergency services, people, you know, take my hat off to them massively because they're doing it on a regular basis, you know. They're not doing it in the war, they're doing it on like daily basis on roads and stuff, and, you know, out in the, you know, whatever, like mountains and stuff. If somebody's getting in trouble in the mountains, they're flying in and they're helping these people, which is a, you know, fantastic sort of job they do, and you're very much appreciative for that. But seeing that, like, sitting there doing that, and I thought, I'm going to take my hat off to these people because they're doing the very best they could for him. You know, but sadly, I could see that, you know, he'd already passed away, his fingers were blue, his lips were blue, so I knew he'd gone, like, you know, so he wasn't responsive at all. It's a, you know, an absolute travesty. Either way, we flew back to Shaiba, landed, and then I blacked out. So I woke up a day and a half later in Kuwait, thinking, what am I doing here? So, and there's my mother and wife stood in the doorway. You know, it's like, oh, what's going on here? Like, oh. But unbeknown to me, myself, they didn't think I was going to pull through, so they flew my mother and my wife across to Kuwait to see me before they had to do any, I don't know, switching off machines or something. I'm not sure. No, but it was a Hungarian brain surgeon that operated on me that evening of the, well, about a day and a half, so pretty much that evening of incident, and a day and a half later I see my mother and wife in the doorway, like, you know. But it's a bit of a, I don't know if it's a funny story or not, but certainly I thought I was a dead man, you know, because I remember waking up at some point over that time and seeing strip lights and stuff, and the lights, you know, the blinding lights people talk about, thinking, no, I'm dead, I'm not alive anymore, you know, type thing. So, and that's probably, I don't know if that's your beliefs or what that comes to fruition, but because I do remember feeling like a distinct like bang in my chest. That's when I opened my lights in my eyes, and I thought, well, actually, there's something not right here. This is, you know, I've passed away, you know, and I seen this lady, grey hair, flowery dress on, and I started thinking to myself, well, perhaps God isn't a man, you know, like we all associate with, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, maybe it's a lady speaking some language or some sort of thing I didn't understand, you know. So it wasn't until, you know, a couple of days later, when I actually come to properly, that I then found out that was a Hungarian brain surgeon's assistant, who was Hungarian, who was wearing a flowery dress, who'd banged my chest to bring my consciousness up to a certain level so that I didn't go too deep into a sort of coma, because I was in a coma. So, and I thought I was very grateful to her for that, but at the same time, you know, that gave me that sort of thought process of thinking, where am I, what am I doing? And I actually settled upon that, actually, no, I'm not dead, I'm in a hospital.
How did you come to terms with your injuries and your, I guess, what your future was going to be in the medium, longer term after that? Obviously you had a huge recovery to get through first of all, but your life had suddenly taken a different course to where it was going to go. How did you deal with that?
So that's an interesting question, because so when I was in Wales, I used to always focus on the after effects. I used to do a thing called Realities of War, sort of chat to young officers going through their training and stuff. And I used to focus on the after part more than the sort of during. So, you know, everyone's, you know, certainly the military these days, you know, probably not currently, but that sort of period, you know, vast majority of people had experienced conflict and, you know, actually been out and being shot at and had the excitement of you know, scooting around and doing their sort of job, you know, so they've all got war stories to tell. So I used to sort of minimise that aspect and focus on the sort of after period, after part. And that, for me, very much stemmed from the recovery from Kuwait back to Selly Oak. So I got flown back by Learjet, and then I then got treated of a Pakistani doctor for my ulnar and radial that had been blown away. So they put two plates and 10 screws into my forearm there, and then I was discharged after, you know, back home to be what's known in the military as sick at home, in a like a terraced house in Warminster, basically going off my head. You know? So I didn't know what happened to me. I didn't know where I was going. I'd lost Mark. I'd lost future, and unbeknown to me, I'd lost quite a lot of things. You know, so you know, and it was explained to me by a psychologist who says this is what's happened to you. You know, you've lost this, you've lost that, you've lost, you know, basically hope, really. You know, and the advice she gave me then was great at the time, but doesn't really work well. It only works for so long, and then it stops. I'll come back to that. But what I found myself doing in that period was gambling. I was doing anything I could to make myself forget. You know.
It was a distraction.
Absolute distraction. So I was getting up. You know,
It sounds like you were grieving.
Well,
in
it was.
many ways. You were
Aye.
grieving for Mark, but you were grieving for your own loss.
Well, it's that guilt, I think. You know, because I know I've got a survivor's guilt, you know. So, and at the time I was gambling. I was going in the William Henry wheel. So I was playing. I was putting starting off £100. I was always going 0, 0, 0. Put money on a 0. You know, and then it'd come in and it'd multiply up. But then where it got to a point where it was probably too much was my wife went down to Warminster to get some money. This is in the days of Switch. You only had a certain limit. I think it was about £2,500 then or something like that. So, and I'd maxed out the Switch card. This is on a late Friday. There's no banks open. On a Saturday, Sunday, you know. Back then, obviously now life's so much busier.
So you were gambling a couple of grand a day?
No, so what had happened was I started off with £100. I gambled and actually made just under £3,000 there. But I gambled away £2,500. So I'd maxed out the Switch card, you see, trying to gain that more. And it wasn't too shabby a sum back then, like, you know. So, but and that really was a catalyst to my wife, who you know I do certainly feel for now. You know, certainly looking back on that, to go and see somebody and say, listen, you know, you need to speak to him. You know, so because she was at the end of her tether. You know, so I'm sitting there with my arm damaged, and she was like, you know, she had her own sort of, she's going through a bit of a traumatic time as well, I suppose, you know, with myself. So and you kind of lose sort of perspective on that, and I think
focus perhaps as well.
Absolutely. You know, it's that sort of pebble in the pond type thing. You know, it's you know, you got the centre point, and it's the ripples, and it's everybody. It's on these different ripples that have been affected as well. Like, and she was affected. You know, so and her way of dealing with things was to kind of run away. You know, so. You know, so she'd disappear off without sounding bad. You know, it's just her way of coping things. You know, she'd say, I'm just going to pop round and see my pal Beth or whatever, like, and she would come back for a couple of hours. Where you been? Like, and I'm sitting there with my boy who's 2.5 years old, with a broken arm, you know, one hand, trying to do stuff. Like, you know, but cut a long story short, I was gambling from the minute I got up, pretty much to when I went to bed. And if I wasn't gambling, I was on a game called Command and Conquer, which was, you could easily lose a lot of time there, which would be you build your forces up and you go away and you defeat other forces and stuff. Very much tapped into the military mindset. You're still in charge of your men type thing, you know, still looking after people and, you know, trying to win the battle. But, you know, I was hooked on that, and then when I got bored of that, I go back on the William Hill roulette wheel, and that was like till early o'clock in the morning. And burning the candle at both ends is a phrase often used. You know, it only gets to a certain point, but I didn't know what I was going through. I wasn't really clear as to why I was behaving the way I was behaving and stuff. And so on. It wasn't until that sort of pushing point of the switch can being maxed out that my wife got the families officer then involved. He's now called welfare officer in today's money. And he came down and he's, you know, spoke to us, and then, you know, he's like, this is like my remit, you know, this is like, you know. So he got specialist help, and the lady I was very grateful. It just felt like a relief just to get it all off. I'll look at her sort of chest. Aye, absolutely. But I did that very quickly, and then she was like, say very quickly, you know, I got it all off my chest, and I felt better about myself instantly. But then she gave me a bit of advice then, which helps you for so long, and then you fall off a cliff face again. So that bit of advice she gave me was keep your mind busy, which back then was probably the right advice, but in today's sort of life, what we know now, was probably not the right advice, you know. So, and you can only keep yourself busy for so long, and then what you find is you do fall off a cliff face, you know. And when I look back on it now, that in itself, dare I say, is sort of life really. You know, we all get to a certain point, you know. And what I've got better at now with managing is recognising that, right, I'm close, you know, and then taking that step back, you know. You see, so no, I can say I've come off twice, and both times it's took me longer to get back up to where I was than it is just to take that step back. You know, if that makes sense, you know.
When you say you've come off twice, does that mean
I've had to get sort of professional help.
Your route to recovery,
Aye.
Since then, you've had a couple of knockbacks?
Well, that's when I say come off twice, that's where, you know, you go for so long and then you feel you can't give any more.
Yeah.
And you sort of at the end of your tether type thing, and you have to get professional help basically. So thankfully there's people around about me who did steer me to get that, you know, and I was very grateful. But what I established, certainly if I look back on these both times now, is, you know, they give you coping strategies, mechanisms and stuff, but they don't cure you. You know, you're never cured. You know, so it's, for me looking back on it now, this is all about like a awareness piece, self journey. You know, you know, you behave certain ways, and you think, well, why did I behave like that? Why, you know, and you start to be a bit more sort of analytical as to why we do things that we do, you know. So there's that aspect. But so there you go. Yeah.
I'm interested about when you started to get that help, and I wonder about how if we could think about people who are struggling with their mental health, perhaps don't have the experiences you have, but have different experiences. And they might be stuck in a circle of whether it's gambling or other addictions. How did you start to feel yourself turning a corner when you got help, when you talked to this psychiatrist? Were you able to see or notice a difference in yourself?
You know, you feel great after speaking to them because you get all your problems off your chest. And this is me certainly being honest and open here. You're driving home, you feel fantastic, you feel great for a couple of days, but then it creeps back in again. You see, so you know, certainly my perception after being very seriously injured was I was, you know, very focused on then at the time more on the family. I wasn't too focused on my career. You know, wasn't too focused on the military, but because I've been very seriously injured, I experienced severe pain. I sort of challenged myself to sort of get my fitness back, and I got it back tenfold. You know, so that was like a challenge. But you know, to get to a point where you sort of realise, I don't think you truly do until you sort of maybe take ownership of your life. I think you know. So for me, taking ownership of my life was when I left and left regular service in September 2019, and then you get a lot of time then to sort of look back on, reflect, and I think about how, you know, things have happened and why and, you know, where. You know, you never get the answers fully, but what you're doing is you're probably dissecting, you know, periods of your life that were quite low. You know, and just thankfully when there was those periods in my life that were quite low, I did have a pretty decent support network with certainly my wife, you know, family, who could recognise actually you're behaving a bit different. You know, you know, you get to a certain point where you actually think, well, actually, you know, you need to do something about this, like, you know. And then certainly for me, the first time, you know, I use that analogy of falling off a cliff face. You know, nobody wants to fall off a cliff face, but I use that because, you know, it is easier to take a couple of steps back if you can recognise you're getting close to like burnout, too much stress. Take a couple of steps back, relax, evaluate the situation, and then you'll be better for it to then say, actually, well, I don't need that. You know, thin stuff out your life that you don't need to do. You know, or maybe that's not adding stress to your life, but it's just taking up more of your time and then putting you under more pressure in other areas, perhaps, is probably a better way of putting it. Rather than falling off a cliff face and then having to get somebody to pick you up, build you back up together, and then you've got to try and climb your way back up to that spot that you were before, which takes a lot longer than it is just to take a couple of steps back. So that's an analogy I use of the sort of cliff face aspect. And it's pretty good that, you know, we've got this sort of day and age now where people are more open and honest and they can chat about their experiences and then hopefully I'm hoping that some of the listeners might be able to pick up some things that they might recognise that they in themselves, and they can think, actually, I mean, if they take a little bit of advice on this, great, you know, that'd be fantastic. But what you find in this day and age as well is everybody's so busy. Far, far too busy. You know, you don't get a moment's peace to sort of sit down, you know, relax and, you know, and actually process what you've actually been through that day. Or, as I alluded to earlier on, you know, sort of this morning, you know, if it's been a traumatic incident, you know, it takes a long, long time for your brain to sort of process exactly what's happened, you know. And another sort of way of, a good way of describing it, it's like choppy seas. You know, so you're nice and calm. You know, somebody drops a massive rock into the sea, or like a volcano goes off in the sea. The sea is all choppy. It takes a long time for that sea to go back to being calm, and that's your brain. So it takes a long time for your brain to get back to that period of stability and calmness. And throughout that process, you know, you could be doing daft things. You know, you could be drinking, you could be gambling, you could be, you know, like, you know, somebody could say something to you and you could just explode, you know, hit them, you know. And it's for the people round about you to recognise that if they can, and then say, actually, you know, I think you need to speak to somebody. And then that somebody is not there to cure you. What they'll do is they'll give you that awareness so that you can then understand exactly, right, actually I can recognise this happening again. Right, why is it happening again? Okay, and then you can sort of try and take that step back. So I sound like a psychiatrist.
But it's interesting that what you've done, and this brings us right back to Respite Rides. From listening to you, Kev, it's clear that what you've done actually is to dig down into your mind and look kind of internally at what's there, and then rebuild it all, and rebuild it in a way that helps you understand how it's working, I think. Have I picked that up right, do you think? Or
Yes, but it didn't take me till I left to realise that. Because the way that, going back to the lady, very kind lady, who meant well, who gave us that bit of advice of keep your mind busy. Well, you can only do that for so long, and traditionally they talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff. And that's not a phrase I actually quite like, to be honest. I'll talk about that a bit more in a second. But certainly, that keep your mind busy equates to what they find in the sort of studies is generally 10 years after a traumatic incident or an event that people actually they do fall off the cliff face, and a little bit whole 10 years later they did, you see. So, but that's because I was keeping my mind busy. Forget little Pandora's box, tight, put it away, don't go near it. I've still got it under control in some respects, and I kind of don't want to go near that. I'll go near that when I feel ready, properly ready. But you keep your mind busy to forget what's happened and to look forward, and certainly the phrase that I heard somebody mention. In fact, actually at the bottom of his email address, don't look back unless you intend on going that way. Which is
That's a really good phrase.
Which is a great phrase. But then the next part was even better. But take the best from the past and bring it forward with you.
Don't look back
unless you intend to go that way, but take the best from the past and bring it forward with you. Which I thought was that really at the time really resonated with me. And I thought, well, Christ, that's it wasn't like earth shattering, but I just thought, well, that's just like in that one sentence it encapsulates quite a lot.
It's so much.
And I don't know who came up with that, but I can't remember the gentleman's name. But he had that at the bottom of his email sort of address, and I remember reading that, thinking, so
yeah.
The power of word, the power of written text.
Absolutely, that's the power of word. Let's think about the power of where we are now, because we're sitting out here. It's late August, early September. The sun is beating down. I've probably got burnt by the time we're sitting here.
And thankfully I've kept my shades on.
But, it sounds very simple, especially when I love cycling.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably as much as you do, and I understand cycling, I get it. But for those who don't ride bikes, describe the kind of the mental health benefit of just being able to move through the environment around us. I mean, we've been cycling for a couple of hours today. We've not seen enough. We've seen 2 people.
It's great, isn't it?
It's lovely.
Aye.
It's lovely. And when you're describing that fog or that busyness, I look around us now, and we've ridden for not far, but there's nothing busy here at all. Do you get? I'm assuming you get that same buzz
all the time, and we're really guilty in the modern sort of world, certainly the Western capitalist world, of wishing our lives away. We go to work, and why do we go to work? We go to work because we want to buy things that or maybe they signed up to things. We've got debt and all that sort of stuff. We've got bills to pay. Life, it's got to go on type thing. So, but when you're in work, you're always looking forward to, I don't know, you're wishing your life away. I want to go on holiday in October, I'm looking forward to that. And you're not really taking in the actual present,
Yeah.
So, and then what nature is good for is actually putting you in the present. So we're sitting in here, we're sitting on a rock, we've got flowers, we've got sticks, we've got there's nice rolling countryside, you're touching the rock, So you're actually reconnecting with nature, So, and that's, and there's a lot to be said for that. The fresh air, taking that bit of downtime as well, just to relax, because I don't know if you're aware, but green is a natural colour to relax the eye, and that in itself is a key to your soul. So if you can relax your eyes, looking at computer screens, staring at these sort of little phones, all that sort of stuff all day, it's not good for your eyes, and it's not good for your psychological and mental health more than anything, because it's boxing you in. Whereas, we're sitting here, we're looking around, you can see as far as I can see, and that's and that really, really does help you sort of connect and ultimately be in the present. You're not dwelling on the past. Well, you could dwell on the past a little bit, but what you find is you're processing thoughts a lot easier with no distractions out in nature than what you would do with sitting in the home, or kids, dogs, people, TVs, all reaching into your brain. Phones beeping. So that's a distraction. At least out here you're getting a chance to sit in the present and really sort of allow your brain to go back to being a nice, calm sea. So that's very much what the aim of Respite Rides is for people who are needing that little bit of a break in life, or dare I say, are probably close to the edge of the cliff face, or might even have come off the cliff face, you know, and they need that little pick-me-up, or want to reevaluate the direction they're going in life. And then certainly come on a Respite Ride and then enjoy the nature, enjoy the present, see all the stunning views. You know, the electric bikes do all the sort of physical hard work, but you still get a lot of health benefits from that physically, because you're still working the body. You're not working it to an extreme. So it opens up the possibilities to a lot more. Well, it opens up the demographic to a wider audience basically. So which then helps people more, because ultimately our brains, you know, are the key to our bodies really. You know, they tell the body what to do. You know, lift your hand, blink, all that sort of stuff, breathe. You know, so that's the core functions. But then, you know, the actual perception aspect all sits in your brain. So and if you can give your brain that bit of respite, you know, away from all this sort of modern day stresses and strains and distractions, then it's you know, it's a massive win, massive positive.
I'm guessing the bike was probably a key tool in your mental health recovery as well.
Absolutely,
and is that what kind of spurned the whole nugget of Respite then? Because it's clear we know, you know, why we're doing it, the benefit of them, but was it your recovery on the bike again that helped this idea blossom?
Absolutely. So if I take you back to sort of 2015, I mean, I had I think so. It came quite quick, the two cliff faces actually, and it was all, when I look back on it, it was all to do with the amount of workload I had on at the time, the little relaxation time I had, and I certainly look back on some of the reports I had with in my army career, you know, all said high capacity for work, you know, and then another sentence might say, you know, like work-life balance off kilter, which is quite regularly wrote into reports, you know, which basically meant that I was basically just working.
Working too hard.
I was going in at early o'clock in the morning. I was finishing late at night. I think I was probably making work for myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because just trying to keep my mind busy. I was going home. I was in, like, dinner it'd been in the oven, so it'd all be frazzled, you know. So invariably you get a cold dinner or a frazzled dinner. Very grateful to my wife for making my dinner, by the way. Thank you very much. But and then literally like a zombie, fall asleep, get back up, do it again next day. You know, so you know, for most people, you know, life is busy. But I like to say to people, you know, how busy do you want to be? And then look at how busy do you need to be. And if you don't need to be too busy, then don't be busy. You know, because you're going to be better for it. You'll be a better person for it. Mm.
But to bring that to Respite Rides,
Yep.
I guess you're helping take people gently within their comfort zone.
Yep.
Help them develop their mind and open the mind. You can't help but come to where we're sitting now and look around at the view and open your mind up.
Oh, absolutely.
And it might be frightening. This big open space might be frightening for some people, but I wonder how it would help create open space, slow things down as well, without taking you into that panic zone you just described, but you are within comfort, and perhaps this is a Respite Ride is a little bit of a stretch, but it helps open the mind.
No, absolutely, and certainly what my main sort of focus is on is experiential and removing barriers to people coming on these Respite Rides, because if they feel, I haven't got a bike, don't worry, I've got a bike, you know. I haven't got a helmet, don't worry, I've got a helmet. I haven't got glasses, gloves, I can give them all that sort of kit, you know, no problem at all, you know. So, and then just need to turn up on the actual day, really, and we start. And then very much then, you know, even if they say, well, I don't have the skills to ride a mountain bike, don't worry, you know, there's going to be nothing that's going to completely sort of throw you, you know, off a cliff face, going back to that aspect. But certainly there's going to be nothing that's going to be, you know, too taxing and put you into panic zone. It's going to be pitched just at the right level so that you're in the sort of comfort, borderline type into sort of stretch, but not stretch per se. This is very much focused on the mind. It's very much focused on getting the experiential. You know, so it's all about seeing the views, open up the mind. When I say open up the mind, my daughter gave, she asked me a question like a good few years ago, and it always sticks with me, is because I used to sit and like driving around, you know, and I always like to have my house is on top of top of a hill. It's on a hill overlooking Inverness, and I think the views are spectacular. I could sit in my sort of little office area that I've got. It sounds posher than it is, by the way. I look at the window and I'm looking across the housetops of some of the houses round about us, straight across Inverness, all the way across to Inverness. I can see the bridge over to the right and see the start of the Great Glen on the left. Fantastic view. And she certainly asked the question, why do you like the views? What's so special about the views? And I says, well, the views basically, if you look at that as your mind, if you can see, as far as I can see, well, that's the limit of your mind, So, and likewise, if you're to open up your curtains one day in a city quite tight, and there's a wall in front of your window, like within, say, stone's throw, probably within touching distance, then that's you putting barriers into your cycle. Well, so consciously putting barriers up in your brain straight away before you even start the day. You're like, oh, look at that view. That's a cracking view. No, because it's a wall. So straight away you're thinking it's quite restrictive. It's quite limiting.
It's enclosing,
yes.
Isn't it? It's drawing down on you again.
Yeah, and it's feeling like it's putting. It's feeling like it's compressing you. Sort of type thing. And that's just by the power of sight. So and I do feel certainly for people who have lost their sight, because you think, that's that's in itself. But then there are other senses do enhance, and certainly for them, certainly speaking to my grandmother who's lost her sight. For her thing is talking. She likes to pick up the phone and talk, and she likes to describe things, and like to see that's like a description of aspects, which is very much what I try and do with some of the social media aspects I do with Instagram and stuff. Putting pretty pictures up of some of the views, because for me it's all about taking people to amazing places, the views, and they can see these amazing views, and that then in itself is the start point, or could be the start point to them very much unlocking their minds. And then what I'm trying to do with Respite Rides is give them the opportunity to experience something fantastic, and it could be the catalyst to go in a different direction in life, or going and experiencing something completely new and wild and fun, rather than and breaking the cycle of maybe negativity that's in there. It's very much a growth mindset encouragement, So.
It sounds a bit like you're continuing your regimental sergeant major role of previous years, of nurturing people, helping them develop, supporting people, trying to bring out the best in people.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to. I get a bit of a buzz seeing people do well, and I see them develop, and then, you give them a bit of advice or give them a little seed, and you watch them change direction, and they go and they blossom. That is fantastic. I get a massive buzz out of seeing that, and I certainly found that's very very rewarding, actually, helping others. Sort of helping other people with their own experiences. So through reliving your own experiences, which is kind of what I'm doing now. So I really do hope that somebody does resonate with what I'm saying, and they maybe take a little snippet away and try something different, or actually that's why I'm behaving like that. And then actually recognising themselves, because it's all about recognising yourself, self-discovery. So and we don't get that chance to do it properly.
Yeah.
Nature, you can.
Nature is doing it. I think we should get back on the bikes and go. But just before we do that, Kev, if someone wants to come out for a ride with you on a Respite Ride, how can they find you? You've said you're all over socials, but website? Yeah,
so we've got the website 42cycling.com, easy enough. There's a whole load of listings on there which could, bookable experiences and stuff, which you can go and have a look at and see if there's something that they can like. I'm going to be I'll advertise it more clearly in the future, but certainly the 7th, 8th, there's a Loch Ness 360 ride, which is 2 days round Loch Ness. Don't need to put the hand in the pocket other than getting themselves to Inverness, and maybe get themselves back, or if they're from Inverness, great, turn up at the day at the set time with the, dress to go riding, and then I'll give them all the rest of the equipment, and we're going to do 2 awesome days. And I don't expect anybody to tell me, their own. It's not like a confessional type thing, like when you get Alcoholics Anonymous and they sit round in a circle and they talk about themselves. None of that sort of stuff. It's all about getting outside, enjoying the scenery, little snippets from myself, predominantly of that, and then in an evening, give a bit more context. So, but if people are listening to this and they've already got all the context, then let's go and have a jolly good time and a nice ride,
Well, I think we should go and do that. We'll put a link to 42cycling.com in the show notes for this podcast. But Kev, thank you so much. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for talking me through those memories, which are clearly still very raw for you, but also just helping me see how much the big open blue sky can help open up your mind and free up your mind and help all of us, I guess. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk about this as well. Like, so it's talking is key, and hopefully, as I said earlier on, that somebody does resonate, and it could be a difference to somebody getting on a respite ride, or even listening to this and then going off and doing something about it, because we're not alone, are we?
No,
so.
We're not alone. And nobody is alone, and everyone should remember that it is okay not to be okay, whatever your circumstances or situation. And if anyone needs it, here's that number for Mikey's line. If you need help or advice, you can text 07786 207755. That's 07786 207755. And you can contact them via Messenger, web chat or Twitter as well. They're available Sunday to Thursday, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and Friday to Saturday, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Now, here's Shona McPherson from Mikey's Line with a few thoughts for you to take away.
Usually when we carry out an unhelpful or addictive behaviour, the reason that we're doing this is that it's serving a function for us. Addiction is usually about escaping pain. And just listening to Kevin's story there, the trauma of war, witnessing his colleague's death, blacking out and having a near-death experience himself, and then the sort of dislocation of being thrown back into life in the UK with this life-changing injury. It's hard to kind of get our heads around the trauma that he's experienced and how we can cope with these things, loss of his friend, his identity, his hope. And so Kevin had feelings that he couldn't bear, he couldn't handle, and his gambling, his gaming, they would have been ways of numbing the incredibly difficult feelings he had, of avoiding those difficult feelings. And the advice that he had to keep busy as he sees himself was another way of avoiding those feelings, and then overworking, another way of doing that. And I think the main message that I've got from Kevin's story there is that, just how there's an intelligence to our avoiding as humans. We don't do these things because we're daft, we do these things to survive, but also that there is hope, that Kevin, through both help and support from his family, his community, and psychological support, and his own intuition into how nature was a helpful place for him, he began to recover, and he began to gain perspective and began to be able to find his way to process trauma through that nature connection, through finding meaning, through his recovery rides himself. And he gives a really strong image about perspective and how that can help, that helped him, and how that can help us. If you're struggling right now with perspective, if your problems feel incredibly close and it's hard to put them in context, that image that he gave of looking out of his window, and this image that there could be when we're feeling really traumatized ourselves, or we're really suffering ourselves, it can be like we're looking out onto a wall and we can't see beyond that. But as we begin to pay attention, be in the present moment, find ways to soothe ourselves, it's like our perspective will begin to grow. We'll see beyond the wall, we'll begin to see the hedge, the fields, the hills. So I suppose my hope for you listening to this is that you can hope that you can heal, that your perspective will shift, that the pain will always be there, that wall might always be there in front of the window, but it's part of a bigger landscape, and a landscape that can hold our pain. So if you are struggling today, please don't be alone, and reach out to someone you trust, and we're here at Mikey's Line to support you as well.
Huge thanks to Shona and all the team at Mikey's Line for the work they do. Speaking of Suicide is made for and in collaboration with Mikey's Line. The podcast platform is sponsored by D&D Paving Limited. Please do like, share and comment about the podcast. And if you want to get involved by sponsoring an episode or telling your story, get in touch with Mikey's line. Speaking of Suicide is an adventurous audio production, and the music is Nana by Tom Ireland.